Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are diving straight into a thrilling historical narrative that absolutely nails that profound tension between personal comfort and a much higher calling. We're unpacking the incredible story of Queen Esther. We'll be looking at the source material to understand a choice that quite literally changed the course of history. And look, this isn't just some dusty old story about ancient royalty. It is an absolute masterclass on how purpose forces us to confront our deepest, darkest fears.
So right off the bat, I want you to think about this question. What would you do if your purpose required you to risk absolutely everything? You know, we all kind of dream of finding our life's purpose, right? We imagine it's going to bring us joy, certainty, maybe a lot of comfort. But what if your ultimate purpose demanded the exact opposite? What if fulfilling your destiny meant putting your very life on the line? Because that is the ultimate stake of the story we're about to explore today. Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, the illusion of safety. To really grasp the magnitude of Esther's choice, we have to understand her reality at that moment. Inside the palace walls, Esther is completely insulated by magnificent luxury. We are talking ancient Persian opulence here, where royal feasts could literally last for 180 days. She's surrounded by marble floors, golden lamps, and ultimate unquestioned security. It was a total bubble. But far beyond those massive gates, the outside world was a vastly different reality. Her people were facing a terrible threat. An evil plan had been set in motion to wipe out countless innocent lives. Fear was spreading through the towns like wildfire. Families were whispering anxiously, and the grieving had already begun. The contrast between her safe little bubble and the sheer terror outside just couldn't be sharper. Now, among those grieving outside was Esther's cousin and guardian, Mordecai. When he got wind of the danger, he managed to send a simple message into the palace that abruptly and permanently shattered Esther's illusion of safety. The message carried enormous weight, just 6 words: "You must speak to the king." With that, Esther's heart must have completely sunk. She knew exactly what that meant. And let me tell you, it wasn't as simple as just knocking on her husband's office door. The reality of her situation was absolutely terrifying, all because of something called the Law of the King. According to this law, anyone who approached him without an explicit invitation could be put to death immediately. It didn't matter if you were a lowly servant, a high-ranking noble, or yes, even the queen herself. One step in the wrong direction, one uninvited appearance in that royal court, meant immediate death. No exceptions. Which brings us to Section 2, a call to purpose. Esther is suddenly facing this monumental crossroads. And honestly, her first reaction is just very human hesitation. Her mind immediately starts racing and spiraling. What if the king gets angry at the interruption? What if he just flat out refuses to listen to her plea? What if she loses everything? Her position, her comfort, her security? Or worse, what if she actually died? And again, this wasn't some dramatic exaggeration. This was the ultimate fatal risk staring her right in the face. These what-ifs are echoing through her mind as the human fear just multiplies. And this brilliantly illustrates a core truth we all face. Fear magnifies dangers and shrinks possibilities. It completely tricks us into believing that safety is the absolute highest goal we can achieve in life. It whispers that remaining silent is somehow wiser than speaking up. Esther was human, just like us. She understood those feelings perfectly, and she was terrified. But then, Mordecai sends another message, and this is the iconic quote that changes everything. He says, "Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?" Wow. Those words settled deep within her heart. They challenged her entire perspective, completely reframing her royal position. Being queen wasn't merely a luxurious reward for her to just sit back and enjoy. It was a weighty responsibility. Perhaps all the crazy experiences in her life had actually prepared her for this exact terrifying moment. Purpose had finally arrived, but it was disguised as a costly, incredibly dangerous decision. Section 3, the ultimate risk. So Esther spends the night agonizing over this, weighing the lives of her entire people against her own personal safety. And the next day, that fear transforms into purpose. She sends a message back out to gather the people and pray, followed by these resolute words that would literally echo through history: "If I perish, I perish." She certainly wasn't seeking death, but she was declaring once and for all that some things are just far more important than personal comfort. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it redefines what it actually means to be brave based on the source text. We often misunderstand courage as just being fearless, right? But true courage is feeling fear deeply, yet simply refusing to let it dictate your decisions. Esther wasn't fearless, she was terrified, but she was purposeful. And when you discover a purpose that's larger than yourself, fear suddenly loses a lot of its paralyzing power.
So, the appointed day finally arrives. Esther walks slowly through those heavy, echoing palace corridors. The silence around her must have felt absolutely overwhelming. Her heart is racing, her hands are trembling. At long last, she enters the royal court. The king sat upon his throne, and the entire room just grew completely still. You have to remember, everyone in that room knew the law. Everyone understood the immense risk she was taking. With a single step into that space, she had put her life completely on the line. And for a moment that must have seemed to last an eternity, Esther stood waiting. She is completely, utterly out of control of the outcome here. The entire weight of her people's survival just hung right there in that silent air. But then, something remarkable happened. The king extended his golden scepter. She was welcomed. She would live. I mean, just imagine the massive wave of relief that must have washed over her in that exact moment. But even though she survived that initial approach, she knew her work was far from finished.
Moving to Section 4, Wisdom and Strategy.
See, that initial bravery was really only the first step. People often mistake courage for recklessness, but Esther shows us that true success requires really careful execution. Just look at her strategy here. First, she didn't just rush in impulsively the second that scepter was lowered. She carefully planned her approach, demonstrating incredible patience. She knew that timing and preparation were absolutely crucial. Second, over the following days, she spoke with profound wisdom and grace. Third, at the exact perfect moment, she revealed the truth and exposed the threat. And fourth, she appealed directly to justice. Because of this strategic brilliance, the king actually listened. The plot was stopped, what seems like an inevitable tragedy was completely overturned, and countless lives and futures were saved.
Let's move to and see how this builds in Section 5, Your Moment of Courage.
Esther's absolute greatest achievement was that private, quiet decision to do what was right despite the horrific cost. And that legacy bridges directly to us today. The principle of courage applies to every single one of us. Look, most of us are never going to stand before an ancient king to save a nation. But we are all going to face situations where staying silent feels so much safer than speaking up. In those everyday moments, remember this. You don't need to be fearless. You don't need to know the outcome before taking action. You certainly don't need absolute guarantees before doing what is right. You just need to move forward despite the uncertainty. Esther never knew exactly how her story would end. She only knew what she had to do.
So I want to leave you with this final, lingering thought. Esther's legacy isn't just about some dramatic historical victory. It is about the immense power of a person who values others way above their own personal comfort. When your moment comes, when you stand at a difficult crossroads and have to choose conviction over comfort, will you step forward despite the uncertainty? Will you recognize that you too might be right where you are for such a time as this? Keep that question with you. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you next time as we continue to break down the ideas that shape our world.